The day Sophia walked out, I didn't see it coming. I'm James, a 32-year-old software engineer in Austin, Texas, and up until that moment, I thought my marriage was bulletproof. Sophia and I had been together for a decade, 3 years dating, 7 married. We met in college, back when I was debugging code in the library and she was cramming for her finance exams. Our connection was instant, sparked by late-night talks about dreams, fears, and the kind of life we wanted to build. Long distance defined our early years, with me in Austin and her in Dallas, but we made it work. Weekend road trips, nightly calls, and endless texts kept us close. If we could survive 200 miles between us, we figured we could handle anything. After the wedding, Sophia moved to Austin to start our life together. I was thrilled. She left her hometown, her friends, everything to be with me. I wanted her to feel at home, so I helped her settle in. We spent evenings scrolling job boards, me sending her links to openings, her tailoring resumes. Within weeks, she landed a customer service gig at a local bank. She dove in, charming clients and coworkers alike, and I was proud. Soon, she was climbing the ranks, eventually leading the customer care unit. To celebrate her promotion, I booked a table at her favorite taco joint downtown. Over margaritas and carne asada, I floated the idea of starting a family. "We're in a good spot, Soph," I said, leaning across the table. "Maybe it's time to think about kids." Her smile tightened, and she steered the conversation back to work, saying we should focus on her big moment. I let it slide, not wanting to push. That night was the first hint of trouble, though I didn't recognize it then. Sophia started spending more time with her new work friends, especially Tara, a coworker with a sharp tongue and a knack for stirring drama. At first, I was glad she was building a circle. I wanted her to have her own life, not just be James's wife. But Tara's influence grew, and I started noticing changes. Sophia would come home from happy hours quieter, distracted, like she was carrying someone else's thoughts. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give vague answers or brush me off. The warmth we'd always shared, the way she'd tease me about my terrible cooking or I'd surprise her with a playlist for her commute, was fading. One evening I got home early from a coding sprint and found Sophia in the living room with Tara and another coworker, laughing over glasses of wine. I said a quick hello and headed to the kitchen to grab a drink, not wanting to intrude. But their voices carried, and what I heard made my stomach turn. Tara was ranting about her ex, bragging about how she'd taught him a lesson by airing his secrets online after their split. The other woman chimed in, laughing about stringing along a married guy, saying his wife was too weak to do anything about it. Their words dripped with bitterness, like they were proud of tearing relationships apart. I stood frozen, gripping my water bottle. These were the people Sophia was choosing to spend her time with? Later, after they left, I brought it up. "Soph, I overheard your friends. That kind of talk, about cheating, about trashing exes, it's toxic. I'm not cool with it." I kept my tone calm, hoping she'd hear me out. Instead, her eyes flashed with anger. "You were eavesdropping? That's low, James. They're my friends, and you don't get to judge them." I tried to explain that I wasn't spying, that I was just worried about the kind of advice they might be giving her. But she shut me down, saying I was trying to control her life. The conversation ended with her storming off to bed, leaving me stunned in the living room. From that night on, things spiraled. Sophia started picking fights over nothing: my tone, my work hours, even the way I loaded the dishwasher. One night she came home late, reeking of vodka and perfume, her eyes glassy from a night out with Tara's crew. It wasn't like her, she'd never been one for weekday bar crawls. When I asked if she was okay, she snapped, accusing me of trying to cage her. "You're threatened by me having a life," she said, her words cutting deep. Then she hit me with something I'll never forget. "You just want a kid to trap me, to keep me stuck while you do whatever you want." I stood there, speechless, as she turned and walked away. The next morning, I found her packing a bag. It was barely dawn, and she was stuffing clothes into a duffel like it was no big deal. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. She didn't look at me, just kept folding. "I'm staying with Tara for a bit," she said. "This marriage isn't working. We need space to figure things out." I tried to reason with her, saying we could talk, maybe see a counselor, but she shook her head. Just a week, James. I need this. And with that, she walked out, the door clicking shut behind her. I stood there, staring at the closed door, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. The woman I loved, the one I'd built a life with, had just walked away like it was nothing. But as the shock wore off, something else took its place: clarity. This wasn't just about needing space. It was about Tara and her poison, about Sophia choosing their influence over our marriage. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't going to beg or chase. I was done playing by their rules. The morning after Sophia walked out, I woke up to silence. No hum of her morning playlist, no clatter of her coffee mug. Just an empty house and a pit in my stomach. I'm James, 32, a software engineer in Austin, Texas, and my wife of 7 years had just left me to figure things out at her friend Tara's place. I sat on the edge of the bed, replaying her exit, the packed duffel, the clipped words, the doors shutting without a glance back. I'd spent years building a life with her, supporting her move to my city, cheering her rise at the bank. And now here I was, alone, because her new friends thought leaving me would teach me a lesson. I called in sick to work, my head too foggy for code. My boss didn't push, giving me a couple of days to sort myself out. I tried to stay busy, answering emails, tweaking a side project, but my mind kept circling back to Sophia's words. This marriage isn't working. They stung, not because they were true, but because they felt scripted, like something Tara would say. I'd seen the way Tara's influence had crept into our life. The late nights, the sharp accusations, the way Sophia dodged every talk about starting a family. It wasn't her. It was them. By noon, I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my laptop and started digging, not into Sophia's phone or emails, but into what I could do. I wasn't going to beg her to come back or blow up her phone with texts. I'd tried talking, reasoning, even suggesting therapy, and she'd brushed it all off. If she thought walking out was the answer, I'd show her what walking away really looked like. I searched Divorce Lawyer Austin and found a firm with solid reviews. My finger hovered over the call button. Divorce wasn't a word I'd ever imagined saying, but neither was abandonment. I dialed. The lawyer, a guy named Mark, met me that afternoon at his office downtown. He was straight to the point, no fluff. Texas is a no-fault divorce state, he said, laying out the process: paperwork, asset division, timelines. If you're sure, we can file today. I nodded, my jaw tight. I'm sure. I gave him the details: our 7-year marriage, no kids, shared bank account, the house in both our names. He didn't sugarcoat the emotional toll, but I wasn't looking for sympathy. I wanted action. By the time I left, the papers were in motion. It felt like signing away a piece of myself, but also like taking control for the first time in months. That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how we got here. Sophia and I had survived long-distance dating, her move to Austin, the grind of new jobs. We'd been a team. But Tara and her crew had wormed their way in, filling Sophia's head with doubts. I remembered the night I overheard them, Tara bragging about humiliating her ex, the other friend laughing about her affair with a married man. Sophia had sat there, soaking it in. When I'd called it out, she turned on me, accusing me of spying. That was the first crack, her defending them over me. The next day, I went back to work, forcing myself to focus. My coworkers noticed I was off but didn't pry. I coded, debugged, attended meetings, all while checking my phone for updates from Mark. By day 3, the papers were ready to be served. I didn't tell Sophia. They'd find her at Tara's place or work. I wasn't angry, not in the yelling and screaming way. I was done. Done with the fights, the cold silences, the way she'd come home reeking of booze and resentment. Done with her choosing Tara's toxic advice over our vows. On the 4th day, my phone lit up with Sophia's name. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was frantic. James, what the hell? Divorce papers? Are you serious? She called again, then texted, You're bluffing. This is your way of guilting me to come back. I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. She thought this was a game, a move to manipulate her, just like Tara had manipulated her into leaving. I typed back, I'm not bluffing. You left. I'm moving on. I hit send and turned off my phone. That evening, I got home to find Sophia at the door, her duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Her eyes were wide, panicked, nothing like the cool confidence she'd had when she left. "James, we need to talk," she said, stepping inside before I could respond. She dropped her bag and launched into a speech, how she didn't mean for things to go this far, how she just needed space, how we could still fix this. I let her talk, her words tumbling out in a rush. She mentioned Tara, admitting her friends had pushed her to leave, saying it'd shake me up and make me appreciate her more. I almost laughed at how absurd it sounded. "Sophia," I said, cutting her off, my voice steady. "You walked out because your friends told you to. You chose them over us. I'm not playing this game." Her face crumpled, and she reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "I filed for divorce because I'm done waiting for you to figure out what you want." She stood there, stunned, as I walked past her to the kitchen. I wasn't heartless. I still loved the woman I married, but that woman wasn't standing in front of me anymore. The Sophia I knew wouldn't have let her friends orchestrate our marriage's collapse. I'm James, a 32-year-old software engineer in Austin, Texas, and my life had just been turned upside down. My wife, Sophia, had walked out on our 7-year marriage, egged on by her toxic friend Tara to teach me a lesson. I didn't beg her to stay. Instead, I filed for divorce, a move that hit her like a freight train. Now, 4 days into her so-called week away, she was back, standing in our living room, pleading for a second chance. Her duffel bag sat by the door, a reminder of how easily she'd left. But I wasn't the same man she'd walked out on. Something in me had hardened, and I wasn't about to let her, or Tara, pull the strings anymore. Sophia's voice cracked as she spoke, her words spilling out in a desperate rush. "James, I messed up. I shouldn't have listened to Tara. She said leaving would make you fight for me, show you care. I didn't think you'd go this far." She stepped closer, her hands twisting together. "We can fix this. Just withdraw the papers. Please." I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, letting her words hang in the air. Her panic was real, but so was my resolve. "You thought walking out would make me chase you," I said, my tone flat. "You gambled our marriage on your friend's advice, and now you're surprised I'm done?" She flinched, but I kept going. "I asked you to talk, to try therapy, to work on us. You didn't just say no, you left. That's not a pause, Sophia. That's a choice." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't soften. I'd spent months watching her drift, letting Tara's bitterness seep into our home. The late-night bar runs, the accusations, the way she'd shut down any talk of kids, it all pointed to one thing: she'd stopped choosing me. Filing for divorce wasn't revenge, it was survival. Sophia sank onto the couch, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tara said you'd begged me to come back. She said men always do when you make them scared." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Tara, the woman who bragged about ruining her ex, was now scripting my marriage. "And you believed her?" I said, shaking my head. "You let someone who trashes relationships tell you how to handle ours." Sophia looked away, her silence confirming everything. She wasn't just caught, she was cornered by her own decisions. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "I'm staying at a friend's tonight," I told her. "You can stay here, but this doesn't change anything. The papers are filed." Her head snapped up, and she stood, reaching for me. "James, wait. We can start over. I'll cut Tara out, I swear." I paused, hand on the doorknob. "You had months to see her for what she is. You didn't. I'm not waiting for you to figure it out now." I walked out, her pleas fading behind me as I drove to my buddy Mike's place across town. Mike didn't ask too many questions when I showed up. He handed me a beer, pointed me to his spare room, and let me crash. The next day, I threw myself into work, debugging code with a focus I hadn't had in weeks. My phone buzzed with texts from Sophia, apologies, promises, even a voice message where she sounded like she was crying. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because every word felt like too little, too late. I called my lawyer, Mark, to check on the divorce. Papers were served. He confirmed. She's got 20 days to respond. After that, we moved to mediation or court. I thanked him and hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and weight. By day 6, Sophia showed up at my office during lunch. I was grabbing coffee from the break room when a coworker flagged me down, saying someone was waiting in the lobby. There she was, standing by the front desk, looking out of place among the tech posters and ping-pong table. "James, we need to talk," she said, her voice urgent. I led her outside to the courtyard, away from curious eyes. "I'm done talking," I said before she could start. "You made your choice when you left." She shook her head, insistent. "It wasn't my idea. Tara kept saying I needed to take control, to make you see I'm not just your wife." I was stupid to listen. "Then why did you?" I asked, my voice low but sharp. "You knew who she was, bragging about wrecking her ex, laughing about affairs. You still let her in our marriage." Sophia's shoulders slumped. "I thought she was looking out for me. She said you were holding me back, that wanting a kid was your way of tying me down." I stared at her, the pieces clicking. Tara hadn't just encouraged Sophia to leave, she'd been planting doubts for months, twisting our life into something it wasn't. I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. "You didn't trust me enough to talk. You trusted her instead. That's not a marriage, Sophia." She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "I've got a meeting. You need to go." I walked back inside, leaving her standing there. My heart pounded, but I didn't look back. That night, Mike asked how I was holding up. "I'm not angry anymore," I told him. "Just clear. I can't live with someone who lets outsiders call the shots." He nodded, clapping me on the shoulder. "You're doing the right thing, man." By the end of the week, Sophia stopped calling. The silence was louder than her pleas. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing: I wasn't turning back. Tara's game had backfired, and Sophia was left holding the consequences. For the first time in months, I felt like I was steering my own life again. I'm James, a 32-year-old software engineer in Austin, Texas, and my marriage was unraveling faster than I could have imagined. Sophia, my wife of 7 years, had walked out on me, goaded by her friend Tara into thinking a week apart would fix me. Instead, I filed for divorce, a decision that shocked her into scrambling back, begging to undo it. But her pleas didn't sway me. I'd seen too much: her blind trust in Tara's toxic advice, the months of distance, the way she'd chosen her friends over our vows. Now, a week after she left, I was staying at my friend Mike's place, and Sophia was back in our house, still trying to change my mind. The morning after our tense confrontation in my office courtyard, I woke up to a quiet phone. No texts, no voicemails. The silence from Sophia was new, almost unsettling after days of her frantic messages. I didn't dwell on it. I had a sprint review at work, and burying myself in code felt like the only thing keeping me grounded. My team was pushing a new feature, and I poured my focus into debugging, letting the logic of ones and zeros drown out the chaos of my personal life. But during a break, my lawyer Mark called. "Sophia's attorney reached out," he said. "She wants to meet before mediation. Probably trying to settle early." I told him to set it up. I wasn't looking to drag this out, but I wasn't backing down either. The meeting happened 2 days later at Mark's office, a neutral space with a conference table and too much coffee. Sophia sat across from me, her lawyer beside her, a guy in a cheap suit who kept adjusting his tie. She looked nervous, her hands clasped tight. "James," she started, her voice low, "I don't want this to go to court. We can work it out. I'll do whatever you want, therapy, anything." Her lawyer nodded, like he'd coached her to say it. I leaned back, keeping my tone even. "You had months to work on us, Sophia. You chose to leave instead. I'm not here to negotiate our marriage back to life." Her lawyer jumped in, suggesting a trial separation instead of divorce, but Mark shut it down, citing the filed papers and Texas law. The meeting ended with no agreement, just Sophia's quiet, "I didn't mean for this to happen." Driving back to Mike's, I felt the weight of her words but no regret. She hadn't meant for it to happen, but she'd let it. Tara's influence wasn't just a one-time stunt, it was a slow poison, turning Sophia into someone who doubted me, our life, everything. I remembered the nights she'd come home late, reeking of bar smoke, snapping at me for asking if she was okay. The way she dismissed my suggestion of kids, acting like it was a trap. It wasn't just Tara, it was Sophia's choice to listen, to let those ideas fester. That night, Mike and I grabbed burgers at a food truck, and I finally opened up. She keeps saying she'll change, I told him. But it's like she's apologizing for getting caught, not for what she did. Mike nodded, chewing thoughtfully. Sounds like she's waking up to the mess she made, but that's on her, not you. He was right. I wasn't the one who'd packed a bag and left. I wasn't the one who'd let a friend's bitterness rewrite our marriage. The next day, I got a call from a mutual friend, Emma, who worked at Sophia's bank. James, I don't know what's going on, but Sophia's a wreck at work, she said. She told me Tara pushed her to leave you, said it'd make you step up. She's starting to see Tara's full of it. I thanked Emma but kept it short. Part of me wanted to feel bad for Sophia, but pity wouldn't fix what was broken. Later that afternoon, I met with Mark again to prep for mediation. He walked me through our assets, the house, our savings, my 401k. She might push for alimony, he warned, but with no kids in her income, it's unlikely. I nodded, ready for whatever came next. By the end of the week, I heard from Emma again. Sophia had confronted Tara at work, calling her out for meddling. Apparently, Tara laughed it off, saying Sophia was too weak to handle her own marriage. Sophia quit the friend group on the spot, blocking Tara's number. When Emma told me, I felt a flicker of respect for Sophia. She was finally drawing a line. But it didn't change my path. I moved into a small apartment near my office, signing a 6-month lease. The first night there, I sat on the couch with a takeout pizza, my laptop open to a new project. It wasn't home, but it was mine. Sophia tried one last time, showing up at my new place unannounced. She stood in the hallway, her voice soft. I cut Tara out, James. I'm going to therapy. I know I screwed up, but I love you. I looked at her, the woman I'd once planned a future with, and felt the ache of what could have been. But I shook my head. Love doesn't mean much when you let someone else run our marriage. I need more than promises now. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and left without another word. As the door closed, I felt lighter, like I'd finally let go of a weight I'd carried too long. I'm James, a 32-year-old software engineer in Austin, Texas, and I was staring down the final chapter of my 7-year marriage to Sophia. She'd walked out on me, pushed by her friend Tara to teach me a lesson, only to be blindsided when I filed for divorce. Her attempts to backtrack, pleading, promising therapy, cutting ties with Tara came too late. I'd moved into a new apartment, signed the lease, and was ready to move forward. The mediation date was set, and I was done waiting for Sophia to prove she'd change. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. Mediation came a week later, in a stark office with a court-appointed mediator who kept things brisk. Sophia sat across from me, her lawyer scribbling notes. She didn't fight for much, just half the savings and to keep her car. The house, our biggest asset, was trickier. We'd bought it together, a fixer-upper we'd poured time into. I wanted to keep it, but Mark, my lawyer, warned it might mean buying her out. Sophia's lawyer pushed for her to stay in the house until it sold, but I held firm. I'll pay her share, I said. I'm not leaving my home. The mediator nodded, and we settled on me covering her equity with a lump sum from my savings. Sophia barely spoke, her eyes fixed on the table. When she signed the agreement, her hand shook. The divorce finalized a month later. Texas moves fast when there's no kids or major disputes. I got the call from Mark while I was at work, tweaking a database query. It's done, he said. You're officially single. I thanked him, hung up, and sat back in my chair. No champagne, no tears, just a quiet sense of closure. I'd fought for our marriage for years, through Sophia's distance, her friend's poison, her sudden exit. Letting go wasn't easy, but it was right. Sophia moved out the next week. I heard from Emma, our mutual friend at the bank, that she'd taken a small apartment downtown and was seeing a therapist twice a week. She'd cut off Tara completely, even switching shifts to avoid her at work. Part of me was glad she was trying to fix herself, but it didn't erase the months of silence, the accusations, the way she'd let Tara's voice drown out mine. I didn't hate her, I just didn't trust her anymore. I threw myself into my new routine. Work was steady, my team landing a big client that kept us busy. After hours, I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching coding to high school kids. It wasn't something I'd planned, just a flyer I saw at a coffee shop that sparked an idea. The kids were sharp, full of questions, and helping them debug their first programs gave me a purpose I hadn't felt in months. One evening, a 15-year-old named Diego got his game loop working after hours of trial and error. His grin as the screen lit up with his project reminded me why I loved coding in the first place. It was a small win, but it felt like mine. Sophia reached out once more, a month after the divorce. She sent a letter, not an email, an actual handwritten note, delivered to my mailbox. It was short, no begging, just an apology. I let Tara and the others twist my thinking. She wrote, "I didn't see how much I was hurting you until it was too late. I'm working on myself, and I hope you're finding peace." I read it twice, then tucked it away. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. She was trying, but her growth wasn't my responsibility anymore. My friends noticed the change in me. Mike, who'd let me crash at his place, said I seemed lighter, like I'd shed a weight. At a barbecue with our old college crew, I laughed more than I had in years, swapping stories about bad code and worse dates. I wasn't fully healed, divorce leaves scars, but I was free. Free from walking on eggshells, from wondering if Sophia would come home warm or cold, from fighting a battle I couldn't win. One night, after a long day at the community center, I sat on my porch with a beer, the Austin skyline glowing in the distance. I thought about the last year, the fights, the betrayal, the divorce. I could have let it break me, but instead, I'd chosen myself. Tara's plan to make me grovel had backfired, and Sophia was left to face the fallout of her choices. I didn't need to gloat or rub it in. My peace was enough. To anyone out there going through this, let me say it straight, you're not crazy for wanting respect. A marriage is two people, not a panel of friends cheering for chaos. If someone lets outsiders poison what you've built, believe them when they show you who they are. Protect your heart, set your boundaries, and don't be afraid to walk away. I did, and I'm still standing.